Beautiful. So I am absolutely pleased to have on the podcast today, Darren Prince. Darren is the founder and CEO of Prince Marketing Group. Prince Marketing Group is one of the largest, strongest, and most widely known entertainment marketing firms in the world. The roster of talent is absolutely incredible, and it's a who's who from the world of entertainment and world-class athletes. Darren, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the time. I know you're extremely busy. You've got a lot of balls you're juggling in the air. Do me a favor. Tell me about when you first started this journey, before Prince Marketing Group. Do I have the information correct? Did you start by collecting baseball cards?
Yeah, in 1984, I started a company called, first off, thanks for having me. In 1984, I started a company called Baseball Card City, mail order company. Nobody cared about anything but baseball back then. Basketball, football, hockey were useless. And I had that company for about 5 or 6 years. My freshman year in college, I wound up dropping out. The business became so big. And I sold Baseball Card City, which by then we changed the name to Prince of Cards to a group of private investors. And I started kind of going full force into autograph signings around the early 90s. I think there was just something super cool about having the interaction with, athletes and celebrities to kind of find out that, research the right products and then offering it out to the marketplace. And I think it was a lot cooler too, getting to bond and chill, as you know, because you were in the business for a while and established relationships with, some of the most iconic athletes and celebrities. And, I did that until probably about 1994, until, Prince Marketing Group. Then I sort of parlayed all those relationships from Magic Johnson, Smokin Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, Chevy Chase, Pamela Anderson, and Magic became my first client. I just had a bigger appetite to do more than just autograph signing. Started focusing on keynote speeches, endorsements, commercials, intellectual property deals, autograph signings, of course. But, now that's like a smaller part of our business. But I still love the hobby, man. I mean, when you're around there for 40 years, I'll go to the National almost every year. Typically, we have talent booked there, and I love just catching up with people and, dear friends like Jeff Rosenberg, who's one of my closest since, like I said, I was a teenager. Kenny Golden, him and I go back, just as long, 40 plus years. And it's just nice to see everybody, succeed and get to where they want, especially when they're good people.
How does Darren Prince convince Magic Johnson to be his first client? What was the relationship prior to that, and how did that whole thing morph into him becoming, your marketing group's first customer?
So,
first client.
I'm sure you're aware I wrote my memoir back in 2019, Aiming High, which is a story about my life. And by the grace of God, July 2nd, 2008, I'll be celebrating 16 years sober as a recovering opiate addict. And I just hit a couple of rough patches in my life. There was a case, I believe it was called Operation Bullpen, back in the maybe 93, 94, around that time. The investigation started, and I was involved in selling a bunch of fraudulent Michael Jordan autographs without knowing. And back then, the Bible of the industry, SCD, was praising, this authenticator that worked for the FBI. He was retired. He was a forensic document expert. 99.9% everything I was doing was direct private signings that I was booking for to celebrities, athletes and celebrities buying product for my own inventory. And they never charged me with mail fraud, but it just ruined me financially because I was offering refund letters and just at that time, you look at it, and I thought it was just a horrific experience, but it's actually indirectly what started Prince Marketing Group, because Magic always had a near and dear relationship with me and my family. And I was with my dad on a fly fishing trip in Alaska, and I had a vision to start my agency. And I thought I needed to go to law school. My dad chuckled and said, "Law school? Life is about who you know, not what you know. You've got some of the greatest relationships in the world. Why don't you start with Magic? He supported you for what just happened. And I was with him in Michigan and went to his hotel suite to get him ready before a public autograph signing. And it was almost like I would have thought he spoke to my dad. I never asked him, but he asked me the same question: what's my next move? I was so nervous, but at that point, I already had a relationship with him for about 3-4 years, and I got up the courage to say, I want to start an agency. And he's like, you got to get a big client if you want to start your own agency, man. You're young. You got to come out of the gate with a big name. Who do you have in mind? And I mustered up the courage to ask him. And he's like, I'm going to give you 2 years, man, to represent me. But if you don't use me to knock down every door to bring in all the celebrities you can to build your agency, I'm going to fire you before those 2 years are up, because life isn't about how successful I become. I'm going to be a success in the world of retired athletes that they've never seen. This was 30 years ago. He goes, it's about how successful I can make you and everybody else around me. Because once you get there, it's about paying it forward to others. And that was it. After I signed him and hired a publicist and we're all over the trade and industry magazines and publications, I went right down the line to all the clients and started signing one after the other, and Prince Marketing Group was born.
Wow. That's wild. I actually do have a pretty funny magic story from when I was at Steiner. I don't think you were there at the time. I think it was other guys from your agency that Magic came into Steiner. It was about 2004, 2005, maybe. And sometimes what Brandon would do is he would get guys to come and give us little pep talks.
Yeah.
And we were in New Rock City and New Rochelle. And
I remember that. It was a morning pep talk, I think, too.
Yes. Yep. And what he would do was we'd shut the office down, everybody in the warehouse in the office. We'd go into the movie theater next door.
Yep.
And Magic came in and he gave us, it was one of the coolest 30, 45 minute speeches ever. I mean, everybody in the place was just, we were buzzing. But afterwards he was doing some autographs for us. So I'm hanging out with Magic and we're doing our thing, and Magic's sitting in I'd never forget it. We were in an office chair and he's just wheeling himself around and I'm handing him basketballs and we're banging through it. And one of the guys in the warehouse that I was very friendly with comes up, and this guy, Henry, was just an amazing guy. Jamaican, very low, like nothing ever fazed this guy. So he walks up and he goes right in the middle of the thing. And he goes, "Hey, Magic, do you know who this guy is?" And he points to me and I go, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Henry, get out of here." And Magic stops and he goes, "It's Paul." At that point, we'd been together about 15, 20 minutes, whatever. So he goes, "No." He goes, "Do you know this is the biggest Celtics fan out there?" And I look at him and I go, "You're going to throw me under the bus like this?" So Magic went right into his Magic mode and he starts busting my chops the whole time. So for the next hour, he's just busting my chops. We're having a great time. He was amazing. He was so much fun, so energetic. He was the best. He really was. And busted my balls to the point where at the end of the day, I asked him to sign something for me. And he writes, "To Paul, go Lakers."
Oh, that's great. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Imagine when I had to ask him to hook me up with Larry Bird as a diehard 1980 Celtics fan myself. He goes, "Look," he goes, "Larry's not me, just so you know. You're not going to get this chatterbox and super bubbly, but he's Larry freaking Bird."
But he's Larry Bird.
For that. And to this day, 30 years later, Book and Larry, we just had him at a corporate event at All-Star Weekend for Converse. And we actually had the most conversation we had back in February in Indiana than probably 30 years put together. He was great. And, it's amazing the contrast of those two. But never in a million years would I thought I'd be working for both of them.
That's wild. I've actually worked with Larry twice when I was at Steiner. And I remember getting a phone call from, I want to say it might have been his secretary. For some reason, the name Robin sticks in my head. I don't know if that was it, but she calls the day before I leave and she goes, "Paul, I just want to let you know, Larry doesn't like to talk." Yeah. Now I'm thinking to myself, like, I can't wait for this to happen because it's Larry's my guy. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't talk to him. Like I'm going to be in a conference room with him, just the two of us for God knows how long. Yeah. If Larry said 15 words, he said 1,000,000. Yeah. He didn't talk. It was just, we were just doing our thing.
You know what? He's got that aura about him. He's LB, like Urban would always tell me. And it's still magical to be around him. I mean, he's one of the most elusive, beloved sports figures of all time, and just being the presence of them is something special, as you know.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
was thrilled. When you were younger, were you an autograph chaser? Were you a guy that just kind of, I'm going to go try to get Magic Johnson's
I
autograph?
mean, I mean, I mean, I had experience. I had a funny story. I was 10 years old at the Livingston Mall, and with my grandma in Livingston, New Jersey. My grandma, my mom, and Yogi Berra was in one of the department stores. They told me who he was, and I walk over with a dollar bill because I had nothing for him to sign. And he took the dollar, put it in his pocket. He goes, "Where's the dollar I'm going to sign for you now?" And yes, that was kind of a cute story.
Was that like the first autograph? Was
Yeah,
Yogi
that was
Berra?
like probably my first autograph. But I'll tell you,
Wow.
my childhood hero growing up was Mookie Wilson. I've got a game used bat of his, jersey, and my boy Nicky C brought me to the Roosevelt Fields Mall. I kept missing him every time I was in town. At this point, I'm at the height of the sports and entertainment industry too, probably early 2000. And Brandon coordinated it with Chris, where I walk into the mall, lines wrapped around the corner. I get closer to the stage. Probably the first time in my life I was ever starstruck. I literally, the tears started. Yeah, it was just one of those crazy moments that I was like, I literally just got off a plane with Magic the week before. I speak to Joe Frazier 10 times a day. I'm around Dennis Rodman. And, there's just something special about the world of sports and remembering that game 6 that I felt like that game 6 in the World Series, man, when I went to school that next day and everybody knew I was the only Mookie Wilson fan. And I felt like I was the hero that day. And I think there was a correlation too, as well, when I think about my struggles with self-esteem and self-worth and how the drug addiction came into play. It was one of those few moments I had outside of when the Celtics won it in '84 and '86 that I felt like a winner. And I think you never forget those feelings because it's almost like I played on the team. And so I think all the emotions kind of came out of me. And Luke couldn't believe it when I don't know if it was, I think it was Brandon actually made a special intro. Luke goes, "You represent all those icons, man, and I'm your hero." And I'm like, "Look, man, I know your grandmother gave you the nickname Mookie. You're William Hayward Wilson. You're from South Carolina. You're 15 minutes from Joe is in Buford." And he was just so blown away that I knew so much about him and had me sit down next to him for a half hour.
That's wild. Wow, Mookie Wilson. That's crazy. I'm actually the exact same way with Tony Dorsett.
No, that's great.
I've had that literally that same conversation with Mookie, that you had with Mookie with Tony.
Yep.
Tony's like, "I'm your guy," and I'm like,
Yep.
"Why are you surprised?"
Yep.
And I went into the whole thing. I know it's Anthony Dorsett. I know your nickname was Hawkeye. I know you're from Equipment, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Like I rattled the whole thing off, and he was like, "Oh my God." Unfortunately, he's to the point where he doesn't remember a whole lot. I think he's kind of diminishing a little bit.
I know, it's sad. I'll tell you a funny story though, about probably a year later, George Kalinske, the famed garden photographer, arranged for Smokin Joe to throw out the first pitch, the last regular season game. And Mike Piazza was the catcher on the Mets that year. And I was friendly with Mike and his now wife, Alicia. She used to be a client. And I took my parents. So it's my parents, me, and Joe. And while in the locker room, the Mets PR rep said, "Is there anybody that Joe would like to say hello to on the team?" Joe never really followed sports outside of boxing. I mean, he knew household names, but that was about it. And my dad goes, "Isn't Mookie Wilson a first base coach?" So Mookie was the first base coach, came into the locker room, lost his mind meeting Joe, especially being from South Carolina, and saw me and looked at me and gave me a big hug. He walked over, he goes, "My man," he goes, "I cannot believe this." And so I got the picture in the frame with the jersey that he signed for me, a game worn jersey. And it said, "To Prince, truly my #1 fan."
That's awesome. And where is it hanging in your office?
Yeah, it's hanging in my office.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So of all the clients you worked with, right? Over the 30, 40 years you've had your group. What's the craziest story?
I mean, the crazy ones probably came from, I would say, Rodman back in the day. I remember at the time his main agent in '96, they invited me to New York City. I just booked him for Gloria Rothstein's East Coast National at Westchester County
Gloria
Center.
Austin, she was
And I had to go the next day to Chicago on a Sunday afternoon flight. So I was like, what do you got going in New York City? And he's like, because dude, you should be there. It's going to be pretty cool for my book. I literally landed in Chicago, man, and I found that he married himself in Times Square, and I missed it. But then he was signing "Bad as I Want to Be," all the books. So that was the crazy one. I was like, "Ooh, I just missed that one." But I mean, I think Ali and Frazier, man, the pictures behind me, sitting center courtside with them at the 2002 NBA All-Star Game, and as an autograph person, I'm still disgusted at myself. I can kind of show you, not able to say it, but here's me sitting center court with the two of them, having dinner with them the night before.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't display the official ticket properly. I thought I had a non-reflective glass, and Ali and Joe's signature faded off the ticket they both signed for me, sitting courtside. And I was like, not that I would ever sell it, but to have that experience, you could see the little red imprint left on each. And I'm like, I should be ashamed of myself that my old place in New Jersey, where I was born and raised, I guess it was just exposed to too much sunlight, and slowly it started fading. I mean, that's a one of one, to have something like that, and to have that incredible moment with these two kings that meant so much to me, not just professionally, but personally.
Wow. That's crazy. I actually had the honor of doing a signing with Muhammad Ali when I was at Steiner. And it was it was a 3-day affair. I mean, I was at his house for 3 days, and it was just the stories coming up.
Was it the one in Berrien Springs or Arizona?
No, Berrien Springs.
Michigan, yeah, the farm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Al
What
Capone's
about Smokin Joe? We used to bring him there all the time. Did you ever get a chance to work with him?
I never met him. I never met him.
A gem. A gem. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it's like when it comes to autographs, most of my guys and the women there, I mean, they're all, pretty cool. But I think now it's become increasingly more difficult with traveling. I have no clue how these fans find out what flight people are on. One of my agents here, Matilda and Carla, they traveled with Charlie Sheen, and there was a time last year coming back into LAX, and there's hundreds of people waiting for Charlie, and you have to kind of bring them to a different crowd.
I always wondered how these people found out flight information.
Hulk Hogan finally stopped traveling commercial, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So now if he does conventions or corporate events, he's got to fly private. A lot of that also has to do with his back and the physical condition, but there was never a time where we would land and it wouldn't be 300 Hulkamaniacs just waiting. And as an agent, it's like we have to be the bad people. We also have to pre-arrange security because the celebrity can never deny an autograph. It's just a bad luck, especially with social media nowadays. So, they got to point the fingers at us for not doing our job properly if we don't figure out an easier route to get them out of an airport. But, I mean, I was just telling a good friend of mine, Lisa Caprera, when we were in Tampa last week, that I remember being at the Singapore restaurant with Hulk Hogan, and I went down there. Probably, I'm down there a lot, 8 to 10 times a year. There's a lot of business, and Ric Flair, we've worked with for years, and Kevin Harrington, the Shark Tank judge, is a business partner. So it's like a hot spot for business, but also personal time. And I can catch up with the real Terry Bollea, not Hulk Hogan. Right. And we were just having lunch one day, and I asked him to give me his valet ticket. I went out to get the car, and as I got up, I turned around, there's 25, 30 people waiting there with camera phones and pens. And I'm like, I finally come down to his home turf and can't escape it. He gets to the valet, meets me. It's like, brother, you look pissed off. What happened? I'm like, nothing. I'm like, I'm just so excited to get personal time with Terry Bollea and not Hulk Hogan, and we got to deal with this. And he puts his hand on my shoulder. This is the type of guy he is. He goes, brother, they still treat me like I'm the world champ. And believe me, if they didn't, you wouldn't be calling me nearly as much as you do for business opportunities. So let's embrace it. And, that humbled me real quick and
It's
made me
nice when they
realize,
get it.
it's truly, it's truly a blessing that, have that, Chevy Chase. I remember it was almost a riot in England 4 years ago. We went out there for, it was a movie screen. I think it was in the summer in England, and they did a big theater show. And I mean, literally, they're fanatic out there. We left the hotel room, and everybody with European vacation memorabilia, and got to a point where people are like banging on the car. He signed as much as he could. And security had to push him in. You would have thought he was a rock star.
Wow. I, I still get amazed when I hear stories like that of guys, again, getting off the plane, chasing autographs that way. And I know some guys that do that.
Yeah, they do it. I mean, it's funny now too, because they almost don't realize you're not really getting fans there anymore. You're getting people that this is like their livelihood, and they still bang them out and sign whatever they got to sign and leave.
Right. Do you have conversations with your clients about situations like that? Like you just said earlier.
For sure. I mean, they kind of know what's up. I mean, sometimes they'll just limit a person, but come on, man, you get off a plane or you're in a restaurant and you leave a hot celebrity spot and there's somebody that's got 20 items. You know what they're doing with it. This isn't a fan. You know what I'm saying? So they'll bang out a few, but at the end of the day, it's like, come on, you try not to take advantage of it.
I assume they're not giving, I assume that these guys aren't giving them the A+ autograph either.
No.
They're probably giving them the quick scribble and.
Exactly. Right. Yep. But you
don't tell your guys, look, don't do it. You tell your guys.
No, I mean, but then there's ones that just don't care. Jerry West, he's always super sweet and cordial no matter how many items, and it's just more annoying for us because we're on a tight schedule to get
schedule, right?
Like, come on. Joe used to get very angry if I ever got between him and his fan. Never gotten one argue with, God bless his soul, over 16 years, but there was a couple times where me and security was trying to pull him, and let me tell you, I had those big monster hands, and it just grabbed me. And Steve Simon in my office a couple of times, been my guy since I was 10, runs my agency back east, and he goes, guys, don't ever get between me and my fans. I don't care if I got to stay another hour. He goes, I'm a champion to the world, and that's a privilege. So we would always just be like, all right, is who is. Anytime we're out with the champ, we knew that you always had to add extra time.
It was going to be extended time, right?
People. He wanted to know about their families. He wanted to hear what their life was about, if they were struggling or their achievements. He was so super personable. It was absolutely incredible. Just a heart of gold.
Wow. That's awesome to hear. Do you have do's and don'ts for your clients when you go do appearances, whether it's a speaking engagement, whether it's an autograph show at a card show? Are there do's and don'ts that you kind of tell them?
Yeah. I mean, I try to tell them to keep in line following my lead. There's an art to doing this, and I do it in my sleep. And when you have to be in agent mode, it's like you don't always have to say yes. Defer to me, like because it could be signing all this, taking all these extra photos at the photo op, portion of it. Like, just put it on me, because at the end of the day, people have to be mindful of your time too. Of course, you're getting paid a ton of money, and over delivering is important, like Magic talks about. But to what degree? If somebody's getting taken care of to be there for an hour, you spend an extra 15 minutes. That's fine. I've had situations where the line looks like it's never going to stop, and I got to walk over to the head marketing person. Like, come on, man, this is a 2-hour event. This can't happen. You guys have to kind of get rid of this, stop the line, get security to really stop people from filtering into the ballroom, because it's to the point where then they could look at me for not doing my job and not minimizing crowd control. So and look, I'm all about giving people the opportunity, and like I said, over delivering. But to what point? You don't want to make it where it's like you're really taking advantage of somebody, because then it's it's a reflection on either them or me, and it's a little disrespectful at times of their time. When you're doing a business deal and you're paying on a certain amount of time, and now you're trying to push it just to turn off with dealing with a corporation in the future if they really try to take advantage of it. So it's always best to put it on my lap, because I could always be the bad guy. I don't care. My job is I have fiduciary responsibility.
That's kind of your job, right?
You know what I'm saying? And if
Sure.
it's multiple clients at a certain spot at one point, usually Steve knows how to handle it. And, the ladies, Matilda and Carla now are learning too, which is a big help that, again, we're all of giving nature and we all want to put smile on people's faces. But at what point is it enough?
Right. You don't want the client to get upset with you either.
That could happen too, because that's when you hear it. And then, it could hurt our business because then I don't want to do those again.
I don't want to do that anymore. Right.
That company again. So it's kind of a balance of both, both sides that you want. Most importantly, is celebrity to be happy with whatever the experience is, but you want the repeat business and you want referrals from the other side, but you want them understanding there's still, certain guidelines. So let's not take advantage and be mindful of the fact that, you're paying them for X amount of time for a keynote and a 15-minute meet and greet when it's done, not an hour meet and greet.
Right. Talk to me about how you see the autograph world changing, right? It used to be contracts were a 2-hour, 750 autograph appearance. And now it's turned into, there's a photo op first, right? There's a separate ticket, a separate booth for that. There's your autographs. Then there's the back room. There's all that other stuff. Has it changed for the better, or has it gotten a little out of hand, I guess?
I think it's got out of hand. I think the biggest issue too, I have to explain to so many of my guys that, we've been signing as long as they have. They want different. The companies can't just keep producing the same signed product line. So it's inscriptions, it's saying, it's quotations. Right. And that's taxing on the hand, man, and the body, and the mind. When you're sitting there and all of a sudden it's an extra hour and a half and your hand's ready to fall off because they want Dominique Wilkins to do 200 fully spelled out human highlight reels, which, he's one of my closest friends in the world. We recap it. Like you can get 25 or 30 full ones during an inscription, during a 2-3 hour event, but he's going to start doing HH film as an abbreviation. That's up to you guys if you want it, because it's just a lot, it's a lot for these guys. At the end of the day, the signings, I think, are supposed to be fun. All my talent, they're all very blessed financially. So signings aren't going to really change their life. So you got to, really just, follow again certain parameters and not take, advantage to be like, oh, we need, Jerry West is super sweet with it. He'll never complain. But there's times where we've let, too many groups get away with, so many, how many the logos do you want? How many Hall of Fame? How many Mr. Clutches? Like, I get it. Like, people want different, but you really got to cap it. And it's not even a money thing. It's like I said, none of them are dependent on that money. It's just be mindful of their time. You want them to come back with a good experience and being like, that was easy. I only had to do, 50 inscription versus 300, but it's tough. I have to explain it on both sides that there's sometimes certain pointers like, look, we'll pay more money on the guarantee. We'll pay over and above, but this is really what we need because the marketplace is so competitive right now because these guys have been signing forever. I had Joe Montana at Aspire for a corporate. I've been back in Canada. I've known Joe forever. And, he was explaining to me, I left my heart in San Francisco and his deal with Fanatics and, just killing his hand. Be mindful. These guys got old, these guys have all gotten older and you got to add that super long. I mean, that's brutal, I
used to tell people all the time, like, think about when you go to buy a house, how many times you have to sign your name at the closing of that house, multiply it by 300. Like that's what these guys do.
And
like
imagine if you and I had times. And imagine if we had to add our middle name, and imagine if we had to year our date of birth, and like a special anniversary. It's a lot, and then it's taxing in the brain because you can't really get into that flow because you're constantly distracted with, okay, this pile needs to be Hall of Fame, this one needs to be 3 times world champion, this one needs to be, record break. It's a lot.
So how do you convince your guys that maybe not that they have to do these autograph signings, but if you come to somebody, you come to Charlie Sheen and go, hey, Charlie, listen, I got a customer that wants you to do an appearance. What if he doesn't do they ever come to you and say, listen, I really don't want to do that?
Oh yeah. It happens all the time. We just did the last two that Charlie did, because it doesn't do public often, were with GTSM, and it was great crew. And we had one in New Jersey on April 13th and 14th around that time. And,
Yeah, I was there.
I made sure, as a business owner, I can't just show up on myself. I got to make sure it's like I bring the people on my side. They got to make sure that's going to flow. So the opportunity is, rewarding for Charlie too. And, again, I had, Steve from my office, Matilda, Carl, I just made sure everybody was there because, it gives more that, that extra touch that, you're making sure that things just move nice and smooth and they're not being taken advantage of. And like I said, GTM has had a great team. Fitterman is Ryan's one of my closest friends in the world and a business partner in another venture we have. I mean, he's top notch. Jeff Rosenberg and TriStar, I mean, doesn't get any better. So it's also dealing with the right group. We just had Jerry West, I think last November, which Schwartz, who I love, him and Mitch always do it right. But just got to make sure they're organized too, man. You've seen some of those back rooms and
oh, heck yeah.
You got the talent there and they're supposed to be ready, but they're inundated with 20 other athletes and celebrities. And, it's almost like why sometimes the Comic-Cons are more enjoyable. The Comic-Cons, when our talent do those, especially Chevy or Charlie, it's really just a time slot. So they're basically set to be on stage hours a day and X amount of photo ops during 2 30-minute blocks or whatever it might be. And then they're done. They might have like a handful of stuff in the back room, but the difference with the Comic-Con is you're giving up much more time. You're allocating 2 full days versus getting pounded with how many in the public and how many in the private to get to that guarantee. So it's a sacrifice, but it's not as much work, but it's more time when you're committing to Comic-Con versus sports shows.
Most of your guys like guys like Chevy and Charlie, they like those Comic-Cons better?
Yeah, I think they enjoy the Comic-Cons better. Charlie's a big sports fan, says Chevy. So I do think especially baseball. I mean, there's no celebrity that knows more about sports, especially baseball, than Charlie Sheen. He literally could be an on-air personality for ESPN. And so he just likes seeing, the players and the guys that he, grew up with or friendly with, and they love seeing him. So that's always nice. But we've even learned with him, he's got to be in a private room. He has to be in a private room in the back because it's just forget about it. He's too nice. He, whether it's, this player or that player, he'll get up and before you know it, he's his own worst enemy. And we had that happen with Fitterman in January, a couple Januaries ago. And like I said, Ryan brings the heat in the A-team every time. It was on Charlie, so many stops and wanting to see this player and catching up with this guy. Before you know it, we got to push the flight back 3 hours because he's having such a good time. But he wasn't mindful of the fact, bro, you have 350 people in the public line. That's a 2.5 hour deal right there.
No doubt. That's freaking great. That's awesome. You still enjoying this?
Hulk is the exact same way, man.
Is he really?
We had him in Chicago in March, and the same thing. Has to have a private back room. There's just no other way to do it because, he can't get cranking when there's so many distractions. Not that they don't not want to see each other and give a hug or, how you doing, but it just becomes too much. I mean, there's one thing between Hall of Famers, but when you're like globally iconic, it's next level.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I got to imagine when a guy like Charlie or a guy like Hulk are at these appearances and there's 20 other athletes, like you said, those athletes probably want to meet them.
Exactly.
Those guys haven't met Hulk Hogan, and there he is 20 feet away.
They're fans because, in their sport, they're greats of the greats, but it's very different when you're globally iconic. All of a sudden, those other, local players and Hall of Famers and world champions, they become kids and they want to come over and pay their respect and say what they've meant to them. And it's an honor to meet you and that type of stuff.
So I've said this about Jim Brown in the past. I've been in back rooms with Jim Brown and I've watched guys walk in, right, at these bigger shows and they see him and they immediately come to a screeching halt, whatever they're doing. and they go
Yep.
over and they kiss the ring.
Yep.
And it's
I know.
like they have to
I know.
go and greet him, and and just whether they haven't met him before, or whether they know him or whatever, they have to go over. Like, I've seen it, and it's crazy.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, I've been in those back rooms like you, and that doesn't happen to every guy.
No.
I would imagine it happens to Hulk Hogan, Ric
Yeah.
Flair.
Yep.
Again, I've seen it happen to Jim
Charlie,
Brown.
Chevy, Magic, obviously.
Magic, right?
No, they're just next level, and it's tough because then it's on us, and then they forget. I'm like, bro,
Right.
you killed 30 minutes doing selfies and freaking FaceTime, and
Right.
it's not. You can't always look at
Hey,
us.
can I call my brother? Hey, can I call?
Like it can't always
Right.
be on us. Like at a certain point, like stay in the back room and knock out what you got to knock out, and then when you're done, if you have an extra 15
If we
minutes,
have time, we can make the rounds, right?
yeah, yep.
But I guess it's hard to say no, I guess, to when these guys are coming over and
Well,
interrupting
there's
them.
mutual respect and admiration. Like I said, even if, regardless if you're globally iconic or you're one of the four major sports legends, I think they appreciate and respect one another. So you kind of want to always have that camaraderie of mutual respect.
Right. Right. You still having fun doing this? And I don't
I
mean
love it. I mean, I got the greatest job in the world. I have every guy's dream job. I say it all the time. And I think if you find something that you love and you're truly passionate about, it's almost like you never have to work a day in your life. And, just my personal journey too, like, discovering self-love and peace from within, and, going back into behavioral patterns over the years, and now having the ability to touch so many lives around the world that are suffering with mental health and substance abuse. I try to preach that, like, external success is great, monetary success is great, but when we work on in here and in here and in here, because we all have character defects, healing for every one of us is a lifelong journey. I know there's a lot of impulsive personalities in the collectibles industry, but when you truly work on you and come from a place of kindness and service, everything in life just manifests, and you get to a better place on where you always wanted to be. And that's what's so enjoyable to me now, because every one of my relationships from that hobby in the corporate world, talent that I've been blessed to represent, they've all gotten strengthened, furthered, and deeper because of this incredible journey I've been on. I mean, represent pop culture phenomenon, D. Goggins. I mean, he's one of the biggest things in the world right now, and started working 2 years ago. I mean, it's the guy that, Joe Rogan and The Rock gave the testimony on his last book, and LeBron has been seen getting on his private jet with his, best-selling book, Can't Hurt Me. And, him and I bonded. He goes, bro, because I love the fact that some of the talent you've worked with, your career's badass, man. You work with some bad motherfuckers. He talks just like he does in his videos. And he goes, but you and I are going to work well together, because I respect the heck out of anybody that goes to war with themselves every day and then tries to help people out there. And so just another blessing that came on this journey.
Well, I didn't want to get too off of topic, but I also want to make sure that people know about your journey. Hopefully there's going to be 1 million people listening to this podcast. I don't know if that's going to happen, but
hey, we just need one, man,
no, I
That's
hear you.
One person that we could help would be great. Like, don't be blinded, by my stories and my external success, because now I'm at a place where, I feel deserving of it, not in an arrogant way. I feel humbled by it, by all the blessings in my life. But I do the work, and I do it every single day.
You have to earn it every day, sure.
And my routine, and I try to bring as many people into my world that I can to, have these incredible experiences and these moments, because, success is how you define it and what it means to you. And it's not always about the flashy cars and the homes. It's about being good with you and here and here and in your soul. And, the hobby is just a very special place. It's a great experience for a father and son. And I know what it meant to me and my dad. Just, I made quick money fast, man. When that baseball card city took off, he knew it was something he was concerned with. He knew that I was this, I was a shy kid. I wasn't super comfortable in my own skin. I was in small classrooms and verbally teased. And then this money came and the success came. and the notoriety came and the respect came. But in here, I wasn't good. And in here, I wasn't good. So for anybody young that's listening and a father and a son, be mindful of that and be mindful of speaking up if you feel different, because you don't want to be me, because by all rights, I shouldn't be here talking to you. You want to be the me of now and the me of 16 years ago when I surrendered on my journey and realized that, all of us need to work on ourselves within to then truly understand the external success coming with that internal success. Because I've got some of the greatest moments, of my life from the hobby, from representing talent, but it all wouldn't mean anything if I didn't mean anything.
Wow. I'll tell you what, Darren, it's the stuff you went through and go through every day. You don't realize it until it kind of kicks you in the face.
Yep.
It just happened. Quick story just happened to me the other day. I got a text message over the weekend. I'm 54 years old, and I got a text from a friend of mine from high school, and she goes, "Hey, by the way, I don't know if you know, but Wendy's in hospice." And I was like, so I pick up the phone, I call her, and I'm like, and come to find out that it was an alcoholism thing that none of us knew.
Cirrhosis of the liver and everything else.
Yeah. So, so you don't realize that it's out there. You tune it out. At least I do, because it doesn't affect me personally until I get that text message.
And I say it all the time. Everybody knows somebody in their life that's impacted by it.
100%.
And I love what this podcast is about, but it's important because there's such ways to make an incredible living in the hobby. And I know there's so many young dynamos, many more today than there was when I was in it, because of social media and different outlets that were never available before. But it's just so important if anybody in the younger demographic is listening to just know that if you feel different, if there's something you need to do just to fit in, like I did, speak up, because it's just a magical place to grow up in this industry, and some of the best memories of my life, but at the same time, some of the most horrible memories of my life, because I let the external success and the feeling of what everybody thought about me dictate my life so long, until I found I hit my knees on July 2nd, 2008, and called out to God at the top of the sports and entertainment industry: take the money, take the business, take the notoriety. If you can give me a single day of freedom, I'll spend the rest of my life one day at a time, taking others out with me. So it's about aligning both, like I said, the external and the internal, and then you become unstoppable in life. And most importantly, be of service and be kind to other people.
Well, thank God that you got to that point and you figured it out. And thank God you're kicking the death out of it every day. And it's awesome. And I'm happy for you and continued success. I'm going to be there watching from afar. Hopefully I actually hope to God we run into each other one day and we can kind of shake hands and meet face to face. I was hoping we could do that at the GTSM show in Jersey, but obviously you were super duper busy. But hopefully, like I said, hopefully there's a million people listening. I hope so. Hopefully there's some, a million people listening to this podcast, and I will be able to kind of introduce them to Darren Prince, and not just the Prince marketing guy, but also the author of that book, Aiming High, and about your other journey, your spiritual journey. And it'll be amazing.
With that, I don't want to end it, even though that's the most important thing in my life. I do have one autograph story I just thought of, because let's bring it back to what the podcast is about.
Absolutely.
So I'm with Muhammad. It's probably around, I'd say maybe 94. And Harlan Werner is one of my closest friends in the world to this day. Incredibly impactful person in my life that indirectly introduced me to Magic and his team back in 93. I go, Harlan, I got a couple items that I need signed Cassius Clay. Is it okay to ask you his luck? It's his name before he converted, to Muslim. So I just be careful. Sometimes he grimaces. He might be okay. I know he likes you. So I said, Champ, would you mind signing a couple of Cassius Clay? Not even kidding you, man. He had a stack of Ollie Beetle sodas. There was 50 of them. Every single one of them, he signed Cassius Clay for me.
Really?
And you know the rarity of that. And he
No
looked at
doubt.
me and he goes
No
like
doubt.
this, like that. It was, I just couldn't believe it. I wish I held on to them. I didn't know I was in the business to sell. You
Yeah,
know,
no
I
doubt.
saved a couple for myself there. I got a bunch of stuff framed back in the New Jersey office that I saved, but that was incredible because I literally asked for a couple and he just, the whole pile, he just ripped off Cassius Clay.
He was when I was out there for that 3 days, and again Harlan was there. It was him and his, the guys from his office, and
He was
Muhammad Ali was.
majestic, man. He was majestic. There'll
Oh, he
never be
was
another like him, ever, ever. And I was just telling the Magic the story after he lit the torch in the '96 Olympics. I cut a deal with Harlan to do these Olympic torch lighting photos. You probably remember them. You've seen them online for sale. And
absolutely.
had him signing to gold. That had a Prince of cards. One had a 1996 sticker. And Harlan goes shopping with Lonnie, and Lonnie goes, Darren, whatever you do, keep him in the room. I'm like, okay, no problem. I'm there with my guy, Alan. And after 20 minutes, Ollie looking around the room and he goes, I'm hungry. Like, all right, champ, I'll order your room service. You want a burger? He goes, no, no, no. I want McDonald's. I said, all right, well, we're at the Essex house in Central Park. I'm like, I'll go get it. I'm like, tell me what you want. He goes, he goes, let's go to McDonald's. And
Oh
he
boy.
stands up. I'm like, oh shit, I can't believe this. I got on a champ sit down line. He's gonna kill me. And because she wasn't there, he goes, I'm the boss, not Lonnie. Bro, we had no choice because now he puts his shoes on, he's putting his jacket on,
You actually
and
went?
he's opening the front door. I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna freaking kill me. We get outside, it was a scene in my life. Taxi cabs, like stopping, blowing the horn, the Ollie, Ollie, Ollie. It was just unbelievable. It took them, we literally got about 6 police officers the minute he walked outside. They knew what was going on, that jumped off the horses and escorted us across the street to McDonald's.
No way.
I thought after he ate that we'd be okay to get back quick enough before they saw and heard what happened. He had to go in the kitchen and thank everybody and take pictures and hugs. And we made it there and back within an hour. And eventually I told Harlan the story. But I mean, that was just, him and Joe just had something. Ollie was just a little different. Joe had that incredible wow factor. But I think the way that Ollie, when I first started with him, he was able to speak, and then he started deteriorating. But
Right.
the magic tricks, the levitation, there was never a time in those 15 years that I was blessed to be around the most recognized human on earth where I would not shut the door and it felt like I just snapped out of a dream. And anybody I ever brought around him said the same thing. It was
It's
just
100% true. 100%
he
true.
had the most godlike aura of any human being I've ever been around in my entire life, ever. I mean, when I tell you Hulk and Matt, they all loved being around him. It was just, yeah. And there'll never be another one like this too again. They both loved getting to airports early so they could sign autographs, kiss the babies, and take photos.
Really?
Everyone, I've flied with Ali a few times, and I've traveled with Joe for, like I said, over a dozen years. It was actually annoying to a degree because you'd have to get there 2 hours, 3 hours early just so the shit show could start. Because Ali would tell me he felt the nicer he is to people, the closer he gets to Allah when he dies.
Okay.
And Joe would tell me that when he won the championship, he was a champion to the world. And it wasn't just about him, it was about celebrating it for everybody. And old school mentality, man.
I was going to say, could you imagine guys would just embrace that now?
Yeah, they're
Wow.
just different. Most of my guys understand that now, but you look at this young generation of superstars, they don't understand that they're flying on private jets. And
Right.
when they get to restaurants, they got security at their table. They only bother when they get up, when they leave. It's, it's just different. They don't get it. Like, you got to look at the public too and understand you're in the spot you're in right now because of them.
Because of them. Yep. I totally agree.
Yep.
I can't believe you took them to McDonald's.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I just told this story a few months ago. I was with
It's so
Urban,
funny.
Matt, I call him
Can't
much.
believe
I
that.
was with him late
Did you guys
last year.
actually eat in the McDonald's?
We literally ate in the freaking McDonald's. I was a nervous freaking wreck. I'm like, I'm going to be so screwed if they get back to the hotel
And you're
and
not there.
realize. And then it was funny because when I told Harlan, he eventually told Lonnie, and then she goes, "Yeah, that's something Muhammad would say. He's the boss. He would never say that if I'm in the room,
Right.
but of course he
Exactly.
wants to be nice and tough when I'm not around because I would have sat his ass down real quick and be like, you ain't going nowhere."
Wow. I just remember when Harlan picked me up at the airport when we were going there because we had to fly into, I want to say we had to fly into where's Notre Dame? I can't think of the name of the town. But we had to fly into Indiana and then drive to Berrien Springs.
Yeah,
And it was like the only restaurant in Berrien Springs was a McDonald's.
yeah,
So we went there and there's pictures of him framed on the wall in the McDonald's in
everywhere.
Berrien Springs,
That was one
Michigan.
of his favorite McDonald's. Yeah,
Yeah,
he'd
it's
go there all the
crazy.
time.
I was like, walked in, I'm like, are you serious?
I know the exact one.
Yeah,
Yep, the exact one. I'll
absolutely
tell you
crazy.
that when I've been through a lot in recovery and losing my dad, but being there for him and him having a sober son for 8.5 years, but losing Joe on November 7th, 2011. 3 years into my recovery, and just be able to get through that and the emotional roller coaster, made me think back to so many of the incredible experiences. And I wrote about this in my book. The night that it was announced that Joe was in hospice was on a Saturday, November 5th, and I was in his high rise in downtown Philly. And it was just Marvis, his longtime girlfriend and caretaker, Denise, and his daughter, Rita, who very sadly passed last year. Rita was an angel. And Lonnie calls me up, and Harlan leaves me a message. Lonnie's going to call. Muhammad's very shaken up. And she goes, "I've not seen him this bad since the announcement was made, since his mother passed away. Is there any way that if I got a jet that Muhammad can see Joe?" I said, "There's no way." I said, "Lonnie, he would absolutely kill me. He won't even see me. I'm just to being in the aura of knowing that this is his time. He would come back from heaven and beat the crap out of me. There's no way he's good." Because she's like, "I understand." She goes, "Just let me know when you find out the arrangements, and we'll be there." And God, for life to be full circle, man. And I got to escort Muhammad and Lonnie to Joe's memorial and sit with them and get them set up and get him in and out safely. And
Wow.
I know he would have. I heard a voice when Jesse Jackson and different speakers were speaking. Joe used to call me boss man, and we'd always talk about going to Ali's funeral, because nobody expected Joe to pass suddenly at 67 with liver cancer. There was a big misdiagnosis by his doctors, and to be able to have that experience. And like I said, I felt Joe's energy being like, you did good, boss man. And to be a part of that with Harlan, to get those two regal icons to make peace. And unfortunately, Harlan was stuck in Vegas during NBA All-Star weekend, and he insisted I made it happen, that it'll happen again. We'll get them together. And sure enough, after the All-Star weekend, we walked the red carpet with them at the ESPYs later that summer. So it was just nice because, it wasn't even on monetizing the opportunities. Something came from it great, but it was just like this mission that we're on for over a decade, back and forth, dealing with Joe's highs and lows about it, Muhammad's highs and lows, and talking crap about one another and talking nothing but love about one another. It was like, you realize how deep this rivalry was, and just to finally have that moment to get them together in Ollie's suite for dinner with Lonnie and me and Joe and Marvis and Howard Bingham, who's since passed, Muhammad's best friend, the photographer. What a thrill, man. And the next day to be sitting with them center court courtside at the All-Star game. That was doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, it does not get better than that.
At that point, I said I could just sign off as being an agent, because I don't know any agent that's got a story like this, because you talk about the greatest rivalry in the history of sports, and a rivalry that's crossed over into so much more than sports. That you hear the Ollie Frazier of this, the Ollie Frazier of that, and I was, so blessed to experience that and be there with these two kings. Is Yeah, it's one of those magical, beautiful moments of my career.
That's awesome. Damn. Like I said, I know you've probably got stories upon stories upon stories. You should be the one doing this podcast, not me.
And I'm good. We've been offered a bunch of podcast opportunities. I'm good doing an interview once or twice a month, and that's it, man. You know, it's I try to find a balance because, you know, most importantly, at times I need to be selfish to keep my tank full so that I can selflessly give to other people that are struggling.
Darren, you're an amazing man. Seriously, you are absolutely amazing. Listen, I want to thank you for your time. I know you are, like I said, a super busy man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, my
I
brother.
appreciate it.
And we'll meet up. It'll happen soon enough.
I hope so. Let me
All right,
ask you
man.
this.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to stop recording.